Looks like the first question in the line is me talking to myself. So when you get up in the morning...
I had a good coffee too. How was your coffee? I'd like to ask about sports.
Absolutely, I'll talk about
I'd like to ask
sports
about football. You used to play pro. I understand your son is playing football. Are you at all concerned about maybe some of the studies coming out with long-term injuries? Does that concern you as a dad? If your son wants to go pro, are you going to say go Bills, or are you going to say go to the NBA instead? What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, like pushing toward any sport, I'd go to the most lucrative of all, which is baseball. Boy, hey. You know, it's funny. I'm not concerned at all about the head injuries in football. That's just part of the game. They taught us back in my day. They taught us to tackle with our forehands, and so that's the way I hit all the time. And now they're changing that, and it makes good sense. I understand protecting receivers. What people get fined for today, I used to get a sticker on the back of my helmet for. Way to go. So things have changed quite a bit. I was only knocked unconscious once on the football field, and I did suffer a couple concussions. I don't think I have too much head injury, but y'all can be the judge of that. I'm not concerned about my son. If he wants to play, it's great. It's funny that you asked that question, because this is the thing that I've struggled with the most in the last 12 years. My son's 12 years old. I'm a single father. Is leaving him to go work, and I hate doing it because if it was up to me, I'd be a stay-at-home dad. I'd be able to stay and be with him all the time. I've coached every team he's ever been a part of until this year, and this year he's finally playing tackle football, and he's been struggling because he's a 12-year-old playing with 13 and 14-year-olds, and they're faster, and they're stronger, and they're bigger. And he's been struggling, and I've been telling him the whole time, listen, you don't have to play football. Play anything you want to, whatever. But the truth is, while I was gone, he hung up his cleats. And it's really hard as a father to not be there the day he decides to do that. So those are the things that are tough about working and being gone, because I'm always there for him. And we talked about it at length before I left, but I'm anxious to get home tonight to make him put the cleats back on. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm anxious to get home tonight, just talk to him about it. I totally support his decision. In any sport, you know, the truth of the matter is, as a father, if he played baseball, I'd miss him, because he'd be gone 62 games a year or something like that, or whatever it is. And there's a lot of pain involved in professional athletics, in any athletics. I just want him to be happy and healthy. So whatever he decides to do, whether it's sports, or if he wants to be a computer geek, or if he wants to be an artist, or if he wants to dance, I don't care. I'll be at the dance recital. And that's the kind of, I want to give him that kind of support going forward. That's it.
Hi. Welcome to Atlanta. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you.
First of all, I love you. Every time I describe my type, I actually use your name.
I like you a little bit more.
All right, we'll talk later.
Because I am single. I mean, it's absolutely.
It's Loretta. Anyways, moving on. When you stepped into this role, you were following two very wonderful men, Christopher Reeve and George Reeves. Did you feel intimidated doing the same role these two men created wonderfully? And now do you worry about the Superman curse for them?
All right, well, actually I was following the steps of three people, because Kirk Allen was before George Reeves. And 1948 serials, which I was not alive to see them. I did catch them on the microfilm or whatever it was. You know, George Reeves, I think, did a great job. I really enjoyed his Clark Kent. The Superman, well, you know, what could you do back in the 50s? It was a little different. He was laying on a box and he jumped off the little trampolines, I suppose. Christopher Reeve was my Superman. He was the Superman I had growing up, and he is the Superman that I modeled my character after when I played Superman. Clark Kent was much more in the George Reeve style, so I sort of stole a little bit from each of them. Footnoting weren't applicable, because I would want to take their thunder, but those guys did great jobs. And when we had started with Lois and Clark, Deborah Joy Levine, she came up with a different take. And it was her take that spoke to me, and it was very clear to me that I felt very comfortable with what she had created on the page. And she continued that, and the show continued in that vein. I was very well aware that I was stepping into the shoes of, possibly the greatest American icon ever. Saying that and understanding what that means are two different things. So when I first started, I said, oh yeah, sure, of course. I'm going to play this role, and it's great. And someone said, your life will never be the same after this. And I said, I don't know what that means, really. And, probably for the first year, it was a really tough transition because you do so many photo shoots and so many things and so brand new to you. I would be asleep in my bed thinking that, like, I was having pictures taken of me. I mean, where's the psychologist on that one? It just felt like it's hard to have that lack of privacy and the loss of anonymity. I can't imagine how I would have handled that had I been even younger. So it's tough for some of these kids who get a degree of fame. Then as you get older, you realize it's all, make-believe anyway. And it's very fleeting, and you watch the next guys come in and do that, so it puts it all in perspective. But I didn't feel daunted by the task because of the way that Deborah Joy created the character. I felt really comfortable. In fact, we'd gone through the audition process, and I was working on it, and I was doing well. And one night they wrote a new scene and had us come back the next day to do that scene. When they wrote that scene, I knew the job was mine. And the scene they wrote was where Lois had come to Clark's apartment and was a little intoxicated and wanted to get it on. And Clark, being the most moral guy in the world, wouldn't do such a thing. And so that was the scene, and I knew how to play that. I don't know how. But I felt very comfortable, and that's when I knew that I was going to, in my head, get the role, or I felt like I was the guy to get it. The Superman curse, there is no Superman curse. I mean, that's completely fabricated. Kirk lived to a very ripe old age and did fantastically. And if I can live as long as him, I'll be lucky. George Reeves, that was his situation was pretty tough. There was a lot that was going on then, and he may have had his own demons. And I don't really know if there is a final decision on what happened to him. I never saw the Affleck movie but I'd like to, that portrayed that, but I really don't know the situation there. Christopher Reeve, as tragic as things were, it could very well be argued that he's extremely triumphant, and what he did and what he overcame was amazing. And certainly in my life, I feel pretty non-cursed at this point in time. Randy Ralph, great friend of mine, great guy, seems to be doing just fine, and now we got Henry Cavill. So the reality is most of us haven't had any real problems, so I think that Superman curse is a myth.
There were rumors that they offered the role first to Gerard Christopher before they realized that he was Superboy, and Kevin Sorbo claims that the role was his, and then they took it away from him. So what's the real story behind the casting process and how the role became yours?
Kevin Sorbo's a liar. Gerard, I don't know what happened with Gerard. I really don't know what the situation was with him, if he was ever considered or not. I wasn't involved at that point in time. I was a kid trying to get a job. And I think I was the first person that the producers read for the role. And I thought I had a different take on it. And I gave my take, and I didn't hear from them for weeks. So I figured I didn't get the role. By the way, you got to check out the guy who asked the question. He's in darn good shape. That doesn't come easy. So I don't know what happened with Gerard, but I read through the role and went through the regular process and step by step, and then we finally got to Network. And when we got to Network, there were 3 girls for Lois Lane and there were 2 guys for Superman. The 2 guys for Superman were myself and Kevin Sorbo. And I actually heard Kevin's audition. I could hear it, and it was very different than mine, and I was like, I think I might have this. Plus he's blonde. I mean, he's huge, but he's blonde. I'm like, he's blonde, and I heard his audition. I think I'm good. So then we had a few audition scenes to read, 3 scenes, but 2 that we were going to do for sure, and 1 was a maybe. And I did the 2 that we were going to do for sure, and I felt very good about them. And then they asked me to read the maybe scene, and I went, uh-oh. I must have screwed something up. And I went back in there and did the Navy scene, and I thought that went pretty well. But I was brand new, you know, I was very nervous to know whether I would have the job or not. They had to tell me the next day because I was testing for 2 other pilots behind that. And the next day I got a phone call, and it was mine. So as far as I know, it was between Kevin and I, and his blonde hair had it ruled out even before he started.
And I was wondering if you were going to write another Superman story, what would you want to do?
Well, I actually wrote 2 episodes while I was there. One of them was Season's Greetings, another was called Virtually Destroyed. It was fun. When you're on a show and you're doing a series like that, I've often said, you know, we work 18 hours a day minimum. I'd leave my house, I'd be home 18 hours later. Sometimes there was one day where we shot 22 hours. I say poor preparation, but other people say go to work. When you're there and you have that downtime in between scenes, in between things, I never wanted to have real idle time. You didn't have enough time to go to the gym or do something completely, so I would sit there and I would write stories. I loved doing that. It was my same time I got cast to play Clark in Lois and Clark. I had a writing deal at Hollywood Pictures, and I couldn't do both because the time commitment was too much for the acting. If I would, you know, I'm honestly doing this, if I were to sit down and write another Superman story, I've seen the stories replayed on Spider-Man, on Batman, a lot of the things that we played in Lois and Clark. You know, we had 86 hours or something of that nature to explore the relationship between the two. And I've seen the same thing, you know, I've seen the Spider-Man movies go through a lot of the same beats that we did, and even Superman Returns, things like that. By the way, Superman Returns, how could Superman let another man raise his kid? Honestly, that's a hard one for me to swallow. I couldn't, that one really bothered me. But I digress. So I don't know where I would take it. I would sit down with the DC guys and I would sit down and talk about it, and I'd listen to what some people had to say. But ultimately, I would take all that in and I would flush it because a story has to stand on its own. I don't know how dark Superman can get. He is the most moral of all characters. You have the most powerful man in the world raised on small-town American values, and it's a pretty strong story, and I'd like to be able to keep those values. It looked like Captain America did a good job in Avengers, and I'd like to see it, you know, handled somewhat in the same way. And if I had a real good story for the next film, I would copyright it to the nth degree before I ever showed it to anybody. That was my story. But at this point in time, I don't have anything. Thank you.